Welcome to the Fantasy Football Prophet podcast, hosted by Craig Phillips and Jeff Torrey. Visit us at fantasyfootballprophet.com. And now your hosts, Craig and Jeff.
Welcome everybody to the Fantasy Football Prophet podcast. I'm Craig, joined as always by Jeff. And today we have Undervalued episode for you. We're basically going to go through the rankings, kind of the consensus ranks, and basically go over who we think are players that are probably kind of undervalued at where they currently are. You can get for, a good price in an auction. And we're not saying these guys are going to be, tier one players. It's just where they're currently being drafted at, what kind of prices they're going for. They're definitely really good values. So we'll get into that in a minute here. In the meantime, make sure you check us out on Twitter at the FF Prophet. We're at Fantasy Football Prophet on Instagram. Our website's fantasyfootballprophet.com. You can always send us an email at fantasyfootballprophet@gmail.com. Remember to check out the review contest we have going on. They have all the information about that in the show notes. Just basically write us a review, send it to us, and you get entered into the contest, and we'll make a podcast about your league specifically. So get those entries in for that. And how about we get into this, Jeff? Undervalued players. I have 10 on my list. Actually, I have 11. I cheated. I put 2 together. But you're at about the same. So
yeah, at a few extra, but I'll just go to 10.
We'll go to 10. We might mention our honorable mentions later. But actually, I do have my 10 list. I just put number 9's 2 players. So I like to cheat a little bit. They're
Gotcha.
similar. All right, we're just going to go, 10 to 1. We'll list off who we are. If we double up on any, we'll go over them and say why we're, what we're going on there. I really don't know what kind of list you're going to have here. We didn't really go over specifically there's no requirements for this list. It's just what we think.
Do you think they're going to be above where they're going on average of the drafts you see currently?
All right, so I'm going to start out at number 10.
All right.
In my number 10, who I literally just added to my list 2 minutes before we started recording. It's Quincy Enunwa.
Okay.
The reasoning for this, I'm not this big, huge Quincy Enunwa fan. And he had some weeks last year where were pretty decent. My thing with him is he's currently ranked 57th in consensus ranks. And he has a very good chance to be the number one receiver. Yes, on a crappy team. I know. But he is possibly the number one receiver. We don't really know what to expect from Decker yet. Age is up there with the injuries. It's a question mark. So Enunwa has the ability or the potential to be the number one receiver on a team. Anybody who's a number one receiver on a team has some value. Look at Kenny Britt last year. Number one receiver on a terrible Rams team. He still had value in fantasy. Enunwa, if he becomes that number one, 57th receiver, that's way too low. That's pretty much undrafted at this point when you're down at 57.
Yeah, and I get where you're coming from. I mean, he is going to be number 2 wide receiver. He's going to get some sort of, statistical output. And even on a bad team, he catches a few touchdowns. He's worthwhile. How many options do they really have in order to go to different places in order to score?
It's if after Decker, Enunwa, maybe Robbie Anderson, who had some issues.
Yeah.
And so there's really, the thing is, there's not many options there. We don't even know who their quarterback is going to be. For sure, it's probably going to be McCown.
Probably.
But you never know. But McCown throws the ball around. So he's going to throw picks, but he throws the ball around.
Yeah, he's okay when he's in there.
So he had 58 catches last year for 857 yards, 4 touchdowns. Not terrible for a guy we literally knew nothing about before the season started. No one knew who Enunwa was. That was with Marshall out there. So no Marshall. And who knows what Decker is? We don't know what Decker is. We really don't know yet.
Yeah, we don't know where he's at.
I'm interested in Decker too. I didn't put him on my list. I actually almost put Decker on my list. I did not. But
yeah, I actually don't know where he's falling in general.
Yeah, he's actually Decker.
But he's probably propped up by the fact that he's a wide receiver 1 this year.
Yeah, that's probably the reason I didn't put him on my list, because he's 36th. Yeah,
okay.
So that's still, I think that's about right for where he should be.
Yeah, especially with the health.
Yeah, But we don't know for sure. So if Decker isn't the same, Enunwa does take a step up. In 57th, you're taking no risk at all.
Yeah.
You can get him for $1 in an auction at this point. Maybe 2. Maybe you have to spend 2. All right, so I'm sure you don't have him on your list.
No, I definitely do not. So I'm wondering if you dug further down than I did.
Yep. But no, that was, I literally just added him last second. That's why he's my number 10. It was just, I'm kind of looking at that, and I noticed his name again on the consensus ranks. I'm like, man, that's too low for me. that's really low. And for a guy who could be the number one receiver on a team,
True.
Yeah, the Jets are terrible. Yes, I know the Jets are terrible.
I'm not a big fan, but I get where you're coming from.
This is going to be like my 5th or 6th receiver for $1. That's what I'm saying with and just kind of...
That is where he's going to fall since he's almost undrafted.
If he doesn't do anything first couple weeks, he's very cuttable. So that's my number 10. Who's your number 10?
My number 10 is the tried and true Phillip Rivers. I realize this is a very unsexy pick, but for number 10 on my list, he's going overall right now 14th on a lot of these that I'm seeing.
That's what I have.
But he also, there's a huge deviation because some people have him as low as like the 20th quarterback, which is I think is pretty bizarre since he always puts up decent numbers and he has a ton of weapons. We've talked about this on many other podcasts. But I don't think there's any way he doesn't improve on his stats from last year, and his stats from last year would easily put him in the top 10.
If he can actually have receivers stay healthy for once, I think, and I have a number 5. He's actually my 5th player on my list.
Oh, okay, beautiful then. So last year he ranked 8th overall. So he was in the top 10 already. Now you get Keenan Allen back. Now you have Hunter Henry in his second year. Now you have, Williams, the big rookie receiver, if he can get it going. I mean, and you still have Tyrell Williams and Inman, Gordon. I mean, they're a stacked offense.
We remember we went over that on that AFC West preview, man. There's so much there.
Exactly, and that's why I truly believe he's being insanely undervalued.
And number 14, that's just...
Yeah, and you saw it on our... if you haven't listened to it, we did a mock draft with a 2-quarterback system, or...
that was our Monday episode that's out, so check that one out. But he's our second quarterback, and I love that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's wonderful. And you can get him a little bit later. So he's my number 10.
Yep. And my number 5. I just really think he is the perfect candidate if you're waiting for quarterback. He is completely the perfect candidate that you will be. I mean, there's no way you won't. I'll be comfortable with that. If he's my guy I get for a couple bucks in an auction, I'm really happy with that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right. Let's go then to number 9. Jeff, I'll go with you first. Who's your number 9?
My number 9 is someone that's been getting a little bit of bad press. Some of the funnier stuff I've seen in a while. But mine is Kelvin Benjamin.
Okay. Yep.
He's a number 1 wide receiver, big target. You can see what he's done. But that fell on hard times last year, so everyone's kind of undervaluing it as a whole, which I think is very smart. Obviously, everyone knows that listens. I'm not a big Panthers offensive guy. But this guy seems that he's going to be very, very stable. And right now he's going for the 34th overall receiver.
Yep.
I think that's way too low, especially when I think his floor for touchdowns is probably at 6. Like, I don't think he'll drop any lower than that. So I think it's relatively risk-free in order to get him at that position. So I think he's undervalued there.
I don't actually have him on my list, but I can 100% see that. And I actually like this talk about Benjamin and how he's getting underhyped. He's going down. I like this. I do enjoy this because you can steal him. Like, that's what I love to see when players like this that I honestly, what shape they come into the OTAs does matter somewhat. But I mean, he has one unflattering photo, and who knows? Yeah, he's slightly overweight. The guy is probably more than he should be for an NFL wide receiver. But you know what? It wasn't like he's supposed to be some crazy speedster. Really, he's a big body who can catch passes and get touchdowns.
I do this. It was one of the funnier memes or whatever.
It is a funny picture too.
Yeah, the Bama thing.
Yeah, you see, it's like
I was cracking up.
I do see it, but you know what? I'm not really concerned. Look,
no, not for him.
Even if he goes in training camp a bit overweight, I mean, a month of training camp before you're going to be in shape. How are you not?
And I think at worst they're going to have to force feed him the ball again because I don't think they. They help themselves a little bit, but they don't really have that other guy across the field from him. I think he's still their best option.
Yep.
Adding McCaffrey, adding another speedster rookie wide receiver can help. So I think he's relatively safe floor-wise, so that's why.
Yep. And I didn't put him on my list, but he's some guy. I kind of hope people just keep him down there. I like when that
happens. Keep it quiet on some of these guys so I can actually get them at value. Yep. But who's your number 9?
I have 2 number 9s.
Oh, okay.
And they are Jacquizz Rodgers and Terrence West. And it's basically these guys. Okay, for the most part, they will each be starting running backs for the first 3 weeks for Rodgers, and I think first 4 weeks for West for sure, with Dixon out. And actually, when Dixon comes back, there's no guarantee that Dixon's going to take over from West. We thought he was last year. Mm-hmm. He didn't take over for West last year. So West is currently 48th. So if you're getting a starting running back, even for 3-4 weeks, at 48 running back, there's no risk here. If you need a guy who, if you're for some reason low on running back, I mean, that's really low. 48th player.
Yeah, very low.
Nothing. Jacquizz Rodgers is 64th. And I understand why, but that's perfect because if you are somebody who's going to want to target Doug Martin, you can get Jacquizz Rodgers so easily, and he's going to be the starter. Charles Sims is there, yes. But I think it's pretty clear that Jacquizz Rodgers is the guy who will be the workhorse in those 3 games.
True. So you are getting, and that's why he is so low, though. You have a guaranteed probably 3 games, and after that, more than likely.
But it's perfect for the Doug Martin owner, somebody who wants to be a Doug Martin owner, which we end up with Doug Martin in every mock we do, I feel like.
I don't know. He should be on this list, but.
And there's 64th. That's just the reason it gets my list because that's just so low. If he was at like 50, 40, I understand, but he produced in those games he was in last year. He really did.
And they obviously they didn't have a problem giving him the ball because they loaded him up.
Well, and as much as we like Doug Martin, there is absolutely no guarantee that when Doug Martin comes back, he will be a sure thing, and he's had issues.
Yes.
And it's very clear that Tampa isn't enamored with him really at this point. You know what I mean? There's been a lot of this stuff. We didn't even know he was going to come back on the team this year.
Yeah, I think he's on thin ice, but
I think he's going to be good. I think so. Yeah. I do think so, but it is not. This is not a guarantee.
No. So and for someone you can throw at the end of your bench,
exactly. If you're in a league that has a deep bench, then Rodgers is very easy to put on the end of your bench. If you have no worries, if you're one of those leagues that has like 4 or 5 guys in your bench, you probably can't mess with having Rodgers.
Right.
Like in our league, we have a much deeper bench. We have about 8 bench spots. You can throw Rodgers on your bench, and it doesn't hurt you at all. So that's why I grouped those 2 guys together. Yeah, they're not like sexy picks, but they will for 3-4 weeks.
And Terrence West.
Terrence West is a little bit more like he's really under the radar.
Yeah, he's a different situation because right now he is this,
we don't
technically
really know.
The starting back.
And Danny Woodhead is, people know Danny Woodhead's there, so they completely forget about West too. But Woodhead plays a different position, really.
Yeah,
he's a running back, but he's not Terrence West's
third down, more of a receiver almost coming out of the backfield.
Yeah, and if the game's out of hand, Woodhead's going to be in. West isn't going to be in.
I'm always surprised too because everyone always assumes that Dixon. You always hear this. Dixon is going to be the starter. Yeah. He was supposed to take over last year. I feel like he was supposed to take over 5 years ago before he was in the league. And he hasn't done anything yet.
Dude, did he impress you that much last year?
No, to be fair, no one on the Ravens really did. But he didn't. He didn't stand out.
No, I didn't think so either. It's the name. Everyone's, this guy's he's gonna.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know where that came from. Really.
We talk about Bucks. It was Charles Sims. I remember Charles Sims. Not last year, the year before, was it, where he was a rookie?
Yep.
And he was an injured rookie, and he kept waiting. Wait till Charles Sims comes back. It just doesn't happen. I like to see it happen.
Yeah.
West isn't great, but you know what? He's steady enough where if he gets in your lineup, he'll probably get you 8 points.
And both of those guys you can get for next to nothing.
Yeah, and that's the thing. These guys you're getting them for literally nothing in an auction, and you're getting them at the end of your draft, so there's no risk, and you might need to use them. Who knows? If you can, maybe they'll do something. If not, get rid of them. All right, number 8. My number 8 is, let's see where he is ranked currently. He's actually, since I made this list, he went up 3 spots. So now he's 21st. This is tight end. His name is Julius Thomas. And he was 24th when I made the list. He's now 21st, so he's starting to inch up. But there's all these rumblings that he's actually looking good. And I actually made this list before those rumblings were coming out. And the only reason he made my list is at 24th, but even 21st, he is so far down there again at tight end. And we have seen it from him before. He's injury risk, there's all this stuff, but beginning of my list is basically guys that are zero risk because you're going to spend $1.
Yeah.
That's why they're there.
I get it, but at the same time I feel I would have to push back on this one just because we do. He's a physical specimen. The guy's huge. He can catch the ball. He can do a lot of good things. But he was only relevant when he played with one of the greatest offenses of all time with Peyton Manning and all those guys. And everywhere he goes, injury. So maybe if he's healthy, but I just can't. I can't move forward with him because I have to see it somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, and I'm somebody, I don't worry about tight end as much. If I'm not getting one of the top guys, I just don't worry. And maybe that's a problem. Maybe I should change that. Where I'm okay with throwing a guy like Julius Thomas on my team and see what happens. Mm-hmm. I'm not too concerned. Yeah, I like securing a good tight end, but it is honestly down there with kicker for me. Because there's so many of them, I feel like, and I never get one of the top guys. I don't get Gronk and Kelsey and those guys. I just don't.
Right.
It's just the way I draft. So I end up looking for somebody like a Thomas down there who has produced in the past, and I put him on my team. 2 weeks in, he's done nothing. Okay, I'll go to Cameron Brate. I'll go to Austin Hooper. I'll go to C.J. Fedorowicz. I'll find somebody. That's kind of where my thought is on that. And I probably won't even end up with Julius Thomas. He'll sit there on the waiver wire when the season starts. But I'm going to be keeping an eye out on him. So that was the start of my list. Is basically players that are 100% dollar players and possibly zero players. They're undrafted players. But after this, the rest of my guys all get drafted.
Yeah. So you get value where
you get value because there's literally they're nothing. They cost you zero.
Yeah, exactly. So throw them out the end of your bench if they work out great.
Anything, they give you value. Yeah. So. All right, you're number 8.
Number 8, we talk about this guy quite a bit, and everyone else is. So he is moving up a bit. But it's a huge discrepancy on this wide receiver. It's Martavis Bryant.
Okay.
Everyone knows I'm a huge fan of his. The thing I love about him, he's going, if you average everything out right now, 33rd. So he's just outside a wide receiver 3, which I think is a very safe bet that he should go within that. The problem is he goes all the way to being ranked number 60. And that's the crazy part. His standard deviation is all over the board.
Yeah, it is.
So, I mean, with that offense, with what we've seen him do, the only thing against him is the fact that he's a guy that has trouble off the field, and he hasn't been able to play because of that. But every time he gets on, he scores a ton of touchdowns. You can't key on him because there's so many weapons in that offense. Yep. Roethlisberger seems to take a liking to him already. That wide receiving 2 position is it's his for the taking. Yep. No one has established themselves there, so he's firmly planted there. I just don't see any way he doesn't turn out to be a wide receiver 3, and I think he could go even farther up than that. I really do think he's probably a safe wide receiver 2 almost.
Yeah, and he is on my list at number 6.
Okay.
And I didn't know if I wanted to put him on my list.
He does get a lot of publicity.
It's hard to say undervalued sometimes, and I really was looking at it, and 33rd, though,
right,
for what he could be, he kind of is undervalued. And that was, honestly, the one player on my list. I'm like, I don't know if he really should be here, if it really qualifies. But I end up putting him.
He started to sneak up.
I think he's going to go up, and he would go off this list, and I'm never a Martavis Bryant fan. I haven't been. But I'm telling you, in these mocks we've done, it's kind of showing me, all of a sudden, Martavis Bryant's there. I'm always like, we can get him another round later, and I'm always happy with that.
And he's always hanging around. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of people above him on this list that I would gladly take him over. And I don't care that he's a wide receiver 2. I don't care that there's a lot of mouths to feed in Pittsburgh. I really do think this guy is just. When he's out there, there's nothing you can say against him. The guy is just a beast.
Yeah, and it is. And I think he's going to go up this list and won't be on it anymore, but just those mocks have really made me see that he's actually fallen. And
I'm not sure what that's all about, and I worry that he's going to get a ton of notoriety right before, and then his stock is going to just skyrocket.
Yep.
It very, very easily could. You can see him; he's kind of going up already. But until that happens, I'm going to be scooping him up in almost every single draft because I just think his upside is way too big to ignore.
Yeah, and once we finally get to the draft, his value will probably change. But yeah, if you can get him where you're getting him now,
exactly,
it's not that crazy of a risk. He's going as a 4th receiver in 10-team leagues and a 3rd receiver in 12-team leagues, and that's great. All right, so that was number 8, correct?
Correct.
Number 7. What's your number 7?
Number 7, this one is not as big, but I actually went with another QB, the last QB on my list. It is Kirk Cousins.
Okay. I hate Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I actually liked our draft when we got Kirk Cousins. Yeah. I don't hate Kirk Cousins, but I'm just never I don't know what it is.
Yeah, and the reason I like him, obviously, I like his wide receiver. I think Terrell Pryor is going to be great. I like Crowder. I like where he's at, and they throw the ball a ton. I don't see what changed with the running back situation that they're not going to pass a lot. Hopefully Reed stays healthy. But this guy also ranked number 5 overall for QBs last year. Number 5 overall. And he never gets talked about like he possibly is the one that's going to jump up again.
Because of people like me, I think I bring it down to that there.
Yeah, and I've seen plenty where he's out of the top 10. Well, I think in the one I'm looking at right now, he's 10th overall.
What I think ends up happening with him is people sometimes don't think he's a great actual NFL quarterback. You know what I mean? As in, like, I don't see Kirk Cousins as a guy who's going to lead your team to a Super Bowl, and maybe that's what ends up making him drop for some reason. But fantasy wise, you gotta turn your mind off from that, I guess, and just realize the numbers he puts up fantasy wise are there. Yeah, he might throw a pick here or there. He might not do everything perfect, but when he throws an incomplete pass, it doesn't matter for us. So
no, exactly.
You know what I mean? Maybe he's not perfect as an actual NFL quarterback, but for fantasy wise, yeah, I think he is. You're probably right about that. I've been coming around on it more and more.
Yeah, and I mean, it's good for
with all his weapons.
Exactly, it's good for people like us too, because everyone will be paying for the larger names, and they are a sure thing. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
Luck, Breeze, Ryan, Rodgers, they're all great, but this guy is a little worse than them, and you're going to get him at a huge discount.
And see, that's why I think that's why our 2 QB draft went well, is we got Cousins and Rivers. And,
the 2 guys on my list that were just undervalued as heck, and that way you can jump up and get running back or something else.
And that's why, those are the guys that you can wait on quarterback because of guys like that. It makes sense. Yeah, I'm coming around a bit on Cousins. I'm much changed since last year when we were in the season and we started this podcast. I was really down on him, but he has all those weapons. He puts up fantasy football numbers at least,
Yeah, without a doubt.
And it seems like he's going. Yeah, it's just he's going to be good. Like, it's hard to say he's not going to be. He's going to be top 15 at worst, and that's the worst.
Well, yeah, and I don't see him falling. I mean, as long as he doesn't get injured, I can't see a world where he falls outside the top 10.
No.
I think if you draft him, you're getting a QB1, and I think he's one of those QBs you can just pretty much ride.
Yep.
I mean, he probably will have 2, maybe 3 games where you're not exactly happy with him, where he hits between the 10 and 15 range.
Yep.
But other than that, I mean, he's going to hit 20 or, and he'll have those weeks where he scores over 30.
Yep. All right. So that was 7 for you. My number 7 is LeGarrette Blount. And he's at 32 right now. And
he's definitely going to be moving his way up.
He is. That's the thing. Like, as of right now, he's 32nd ranked player. I mean, what is going to stop him from being the number 1 back in Philly? Anything? Wendell Smallwood?
Yeah.
Right?
Not a thing.
Who's a rookie? Pumphrey? I can't remember his name.
Pumphrey.
He's not going to be there. And Sproles is not the guy.
No. At the very worst, he's going to be the goal line back.
What is stopping Blount from being for 32nd? That is a 3rd or 4th running back. As a 4th in a 10-team league, if you have LeGarrette Blount as your 4th running back, I mean, yes, LeGarrette Blount. Look what he did last year. Like, everyone's so down on him, and the reason if you can get him for 32nd, he's 1 spot ahead of Danny Woodhead. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
And you worry about
he's 3 spots ahead of Samaje Perine.
Yeah, I mean, where he's at right now is crazy, but I think he's going to go up after he signed and everything like that. But LeGarrette Blount was 7th overall in running backs last year. He was only 5 points overall behind Devontae Freeman.
Yeah,
and I mean, the problem was he got an incredible amount of work and he got an incredible amount of touchdowns, which I don't know if he can really duplicate that. But I guess that's not really the point, right? Even if he doesn't come near those numbers, he's a top 20 anyway.
And he's behind. I mean, he's behind Paul Perkins. I don't see it. I am not a Paul Perkins guy.
No, I'm not.
And I don't see it. And 32nd. I mean, the thing is, we say he's going to go up, but the ranks I have up here from Fantasy Pros, plug them because this is a great site to get all their consensus.
Really, yeah, they're good.
Everything for their default consensus ranks. Everybody is May 27th to today ranks. There's no one that's a month ago on these ranks right now. If they are, they're not in the default. So everyone that has these ranks currently, Blunt's been on the Eagles now for weeks. So I don't know. If I can get him as like a 32nd running back, he's my 4th running back. I feel great.
Yeah, without a doubt.
That's the reason. It's value. This is all value to me. And yes, there's a lot of players I like better than him. And there's a lot of players that have more potential than he does. Yes, he kind of has a ceiling where you know what he's going to do.
Exactly. But he's definitely got huge upside, especially at that, right? I mean,
they got rid of Matthews.
He could pilfer 10 touchdowns easy.
They didn't go after Peterson. They didn't go after certain guys. They drafted a guy, but they drafted him later. I mean, I just think it has good potential here to be a number 1 guy who you get for very cheap, just like you did last year. And people were down on him. I was down on him all year. I had him down in my ranks all year. And shouldn't have. He kept getting touchdowns. And I think the offense, I feel like, should be better in Philly. Wentz will be a second-year guy. They got Alshon out there now. I like Zach Ertz, Jordan Matthews. I don't love the team, but I like the way that's going. I like the offense. So that's why he made my list at number 7. All right, so number 6, number 5 for me are already done. So who's your number 6?
Number 6, going on the same bandwagon as you as far as running back. This is where I put old man Frank Gore on here.
Yep.
Old running back, obviously that's what everyone's going to, tick him for, try to drop him down in the rankings. He was 12th overall as a running back last year. He doesn't quite get the, carries the work. You can see he's a little bit different of a back. But he's all the way, let me see where he was. I believe he's almost so he's 27th overall. But no one's ever going to look at this guy and I really want him on my team. Like, Martavis Bryant, he's going to be kind of the shining star. People will reach to get him probably.
Yep.
No one's going to reach to get Gore. And I love this guy as my running back number 3 and possibly number 4.
Well, I don't have him on my list, but to me, it's like LeGarrette Blount in a way.
And they're very close.
It is that same kind of thing. It's like it's an unsexy pick that you're getting for nothing. No one really loves this guy. And you're not going to use him other than your bye weeks. Mostly, if everything falls right, you're only using him on your bye weeks.
I think about this too. You think about injury, especially how thin the running back is this year. Yep. This guy is a steal this far down.
And sometimes I like to have a guy like that on my bench just sitting there that if your starter goes down, you don't have to go. Like in ours, we do a free agent auction budget, which is definitely the best way to go for free agents and waivers. But the thing is, if your guy goes down and you don't have the handcuff, you have to blow your whole budget on getting a handcuff who you don't know is going to do anything. Have a guy like Frank Gore on your bench, you just plug him in. 8 points. Maybe 10. Some weeks he might get you 14 one week because he gets a touchdown. And yes, this could be the year that Frank Gore falls off a cliff. It's going to happen at some point, you think. But maybe Frank Gore is just not good. Maybe it's not going to happen.
And it's quite possible. He could. But at the same time, you're not putting yourself in a financial situation where it's not like, hey, say, I don't know, Hyde gets hurt or something, which you will have to pay for. This guy is going to go for very, very low.
You'll go under 10. You'll go under 10, I think, at this point.
Yeah, he falls off. No big deal.
Well, the funny thing is, he's 27th currently on these ranks. I don't even think he will go for. He's 27th. He's ahead of even Gillislee, Perkins, Peterson, Blunt, Martin, all these guys. Those guys are going to go for more money than him.
Oh yeah, without doubt.
They will. It's just the way people rank it this way because they know he probably should be where he is, and then when you get to a draft, people just I don't want Frank Gore. But yes, you don't want him as your number 2. You probably don't want him as your 3. Maybe you don't. But if you can get him as your 4, and that's the thing. Yeah, he's ranked as a 3, but I think he falls to a 4th running back. Then he's just sitting on your bench. No big deal.
Yeah, but I mean, even if you look at his numbers last year, weeks 1 through 9, he scored under. I was going to say under 10, but I will say under 10. Under 10 twice, and both of those times he scored 8.
Yep.
And then it went all the way up to 19. Yeah, so he's just very, very safe. He's steady.
And I guess it depends on what kind of fantasy football player you are. Some people like to take more chances. I don't, personally. Well, in some spots, maybe I like to have a baseline guy like that.
Yeah, especially if I already know my team. You can see the matchup. Yeah. If my team is already more superior than the person I'm going to play, I would much rather put someone like Frank Gore and let the big guns I have, just build on his 10 points, than put in a guy that I'm like, he could blow up or he could give me 2 and put myself in a dangerous position.
All right. Number 5, Jeff. Who's your 5th?
Number 5. This guy, this one might be a little old now, but this is actually Hunter Henry.
Okay.
So
Hunter Henry, Jeff. It's your guy.
Yeah. I love him. There's no way around it. The thing about tight end ranking is that they don't change a whole lot, which is probably the only reason why this one still works.
Was he 11th currently? So he's still out of the top 10.
Yeah, and on these, so number 11, I think that's crazy that he's not a starting tight end. I see the drawback. Gase is still there.
Yep.
He has to prove himself, only a sophomore in the league. But I just see his upside being so much more than any of these other guys, besides for maybe an Eifert. That has a huge ceiling as well. But I think Hunter Henry is being incredibly undervalued, especially at a position that is very vanilla. I think you can draft a lot of guys that are going to score 5-6 points.
Yep.
I think Hunter Henry can be that guy that come in, and there's going to be weeks where he scores 20. I really believe that.
And we talk about how tight ends usually don't do anything their first year, and he did more than most. He really did.
Yeah.
And, I mean, sometimes I don't think touchdown numbers for a tight end are a fluke, necessarily. Not a rookie tight end like that with a veteran quarterback. You know what I mean?
You're telling me he's not going to at least reproduce those numbers?
It's something that I feel like a lot of those situations, you think, okay, it's kind of a fluky situation the way the touchdowns were. I don't know. With Rivers and a big tight end like that, obviously Rivers and Gates for how many years?
Yeah.
And Gates still there. He's there, yes.
He is there, yeah.
But Rivers has a history of throwing the tight end and throwing touchdowns at tight ends. Why is it going to stop?
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason. So that's why he's on here.
Yeah,
maybe I could have moved him down to like number, because you do hear quite a bit about the guy, but I really think he's being undervalued.
Yeah. I like this. We've had a lot of differences on this list, actually.
We do.
And we're going to have probably a difference right here. And I'm going to have to sell you on this one. I know for sure you're going to be like, okay, you're an idiot here. We agree most of the time on these episodes, I feel like. I just, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like you're definitely going to disagree with me here. Number 4, John Brown.
All right, well, sell me.
Okay.
Tell me. You're not wrong. I believe that you are incorrect on this one.
I honestly just really... Okay. I gotta gather my thoughts and try to sell this. John Brown is currently the 49th ranked wide receiver. Okay,
it's very low for a wide receiver 2.
I really believe last year was it was injuries. He had a cyst in his spine. Sounds like now the sickle cell trait thing. That was an issue with getting healthy. It sounded like hamstring issue. Yes, maybe he's injury prone. Maybe it'll continue. But it just feels like there was a lot of these little things that made him have the season he did. He wasn't actually healthy. We went last year. John Brown was going. He was definitely up the rankings. I think he finished like about 20th. In 2015, he was about 20th ranked wide receiver. Mm-hmm. He had 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns, 65 catches, with a lot of players to throw the ball to. There's no Michael Floyd there. Larry Fitzgerald is becoming more and more and more of a tight end. Honestly, he plays almost a tight end position. He's a possession guy. They need a guy on the outside. I don't think that's J.J. Nelson. I think it's John Brown, and he's 49th ranked. Like, this is where I think the value comes in. You could get a guy as a 4th or a 5th receiver who has potential to be a number 1 receiver on a team. Still, I think, a good offense. I really do believe that. Yes, Palmer dropped down last year. I think that was to do with Brown being injured, Michael Floyd just never living up to what he should have been, and Fitzgerald's getting a little older. I just really think like this is a guy you can get for nothing. That's where I'm looking at it. He's so far down the list. If there's somebody who's going to possibly break out, why not? Why can't it be John Brown? He already showed flashes that he could do this. Then he had an injury-filled season and a bunch of little random injuries. It wasn't like he had some major injury that's going to take away his speed. It's going to take away everything. It was a bunch of little things he never could get right. I don't even know. He might have had a concussion at the beginning there. I think there was just a bunch of stuff going on. So there's John Brown. I think he's going to be my guy this year. I don't know what it is. The more and more I wasn't on John Brown at the beginning of the year. The more and more I look at things and kind of really look into last year and just see all the injuries and everything that went wrong, I think he's going to surprise people. And people are he's like that post-hype player. He got hyped up last year, didn't do it, was hurt. Now everyone's forgot about him, and he's going to kind of sneak up on you. So that's where I'm at.
I guess I could see it. Being a wide receiver, too, we've seen it. He did 2 years ago. He had 1,000 yards with 7 TDs. Yep. I have a hard time buying into it still. I think I need to hear that he's back healthy and that someone is not going to jump up and get him. And I don't put a whole lot of water behind this, but, I mean, even Fitzgerald was kind of, throwing some sunshine over at one of their rookies, Chad Williams.
Yeah, I saw that, yep.
I feel like that whole wide receiving is just up in the air so much that I'm not sure. But if he is healthy and he is a wide receiver too, you're probably going to be right. I just have a hard time buying it right now.
As a 49th ranked guy, you're not. Again, there's no risk.
Yeah, no
That's
risk.
what I love
Very
about
true.
it. There's no risk for a guy who could possibly be. I'm not gonna say. I don't like saying top guy because I'm not saying. I don't think John Brown's gonna be a top 10 player. But why can't he be top 25 receiver? And if you get him as a 50th receiver and he's a top 25, a wide receiver 2 or a flex, so you can actually play. Again, that's just if you can get these guys for nothing that actually can contribute. It's just that's how you win. That's how you can win leagues. Is getting these guys at the end of the draft that really can have that potential there. You get a guy like Frank Gore, and then you get a guy like John Brown. You kind of mix and mix and match there. You get some potential guys, but get the sure. Make sure you get the sure thing guys. I'm not going to get John Brown if I don't have a few sure thing players around there.
Right.
And it depends on how my team's being made up at the time.
Stocking your bench.
Yeah, it depends. How good I think my top receivers are, or if I'm kind of worried about them and they're not as consistent, I might go with a more consistent guy down there. I might go with Kenny Britt even, because I think he can be more consistent. Maybe not Kenny Britt, but that
right.
that type of guy. You know what I mean? Like you know is going to get you some points. If you don't need that, get the guy who has all the potential in the world that could also just bust and do nothing for you. So that's my John Brown spiel.
Yeah, you did a pretty good job selling me.
And the thing is, there's no risk. No risk.
Yeah, no risk whatsoever.
So why not? All right, number 4, Jeff.
Number 4, this guy he's actually kind of leveled off. But Dante Moncrief for me, I think is a good one. I think T.Y. Hilton obviously is a very good wide receiver, but I've never fully sold on him being like the marquee wide receiver there. Yeah. I think Moncrief can do a lot of things that T.Y. can't. I think he's a little more of a possession guy. I think he'll still catch touchdowns. Great quarterback. They shored up the line a little bit. He had a rough last season being injured. And the season before that, it's not like he put up monster numbers by any means. It just kind of, it was where he was at too, in that offense and what position he was playing. So I think he's a very, very good candidate for not only being undervalued in this situation, but for jumping up to that next tier. Yep. I think you can get this guy before he really blows up.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't have him on my list either, but we end up with him in our drafts a lot, or at least consider him.
And he's a little higher on this list than...
I think he's starting to get up there a little bit more.
Yeah. So he's 28th overall, but he ranges all the way to 52.
Yep.
So the 28 is, I can see that, but I still would put him a little higher.
Yep. I mean, yeah, he's a good offense, good quarterback throwing the ball to him. If he can stay healthy, there's not a terrible risk with him. Because, as much as I don't feel like his price is going to be crazy.
No, it's going to be reasonable.
I think that's the thing. No matter what, I feel like it's just going to be a very reasonable price. Where if he doesn't really do anything, he gets hurt again, you're not going to be. Yeah, it's not going to be like a John Brown. You're getting it for nothing, obviously, but it's not going to hurt you. It's not going to sink your. And honestly, I don't think any player you get can really kill your season if you play it right and you get enough waivers. I mean, my team last year, I had Adrian Peterson. The year before, Jamal Charles. I spent $70 on I think both of these guys. I made it to the championship 2 years ago. I made it to the playoffs last year. It didn't kill your season. As long as you are staying on the waiver wire, no one player is going to hurt you. So
yeah, exactly.
And these guys definitely won't. If they don't do anything, he should be a third receiver. Possibly, he really should.
So that's why this list that I'm looking at is a little different than the other ones I've seen. But I think he's incredibly safe to get, and I think he's being undervalued in most leagues.
Yep. Yeah, I think so too. But we seem to end up getting him a lot on our teams. It seems the way it works. All right, so that was number
4 for me.
So number 3, I finally got a player again.
Okay.
My number 3 is Willie Snead.
Okay, he's my number 1 overall.
Okay, yeah. See, and he's just I have him as 35th when I made this list. So
yeah, he's 36th overall right now.
Okay, so 36. That's a 4th receiver. That
yeah.
What? I don't see him being a 4th receiver. I think if you get him as your 4th receiver, that is wonderful because someone has to get those Cooks targets. I mean, it's not all going to Michael Thomas.
No, they throw a ton, and the fact that Cooks and Thomas were back-to-back, both top 10 guys last year. I mean, you're telling me that Willie Snead couldn't jump up there and be 15th relatively easy? Because Fleener isn't changing that. They could run the ball a little more now that they have AP and that three-headed beast. But
I still feel like they're going to be in shootouts.
Oh, they're going to, yeah. And
right?
They still haven't improved enough to get out of that. And Willie Snead has proven himself to be very reliable and a good receiver.
He has. He's been usable in all, 2 seasons in the league now. Is he the third-year guy, I think, now? But he's never like, oh man, everyone, you want Willie Snead on your team. You don't necessarily the last couple of years, but
I've used the guy before, but it was just the fact that he was always a wide receiver 3.
Yeah, and he is the clear number 2 on that team.
Oh yeah, no one's challenging him right now.
I mean, I guess he's officially been in the league about 3 years, but he didn't play his first year. 69 catches, and then 72 catches for 984 and 895, 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns.
I mean, look at this guy. He's as in wide receiver 3. he comes out and he almost does 1,000 yards.
See, even if you get him at the 36th spot right now, if he puts up the numbers he has the last 2 seasons, it's fine.
Yeah, and you're telling me as a wide receiver too, I mean, you don't see this at least staying the same and his TDs going up
I can see it being 80 catches, 1,000 yards, and 5-6 touchdowns. It's not going to be crazy, but for where he is he's getting drafted as a 4th receiver, and I think
he's so low.
I think he's better than that.
I do too. I think this guy's upside is very, very big because you see what this offense does. You can plug people in, and obviously he's proven himself. I mean, 69 catches pretty much as a rookie, just coming in and almost putting up 1,000 yards, and then coming right back to that when, I mean, obviously the rookie Michael Thomas came in and he was soaking up a lot of targets, and he still almost recreates the same exact thing.
Yep. Yeah, I'm going to be targeting him, and so are you, so I guess he's going to get overpriced. Dang it.
Right.
This is going to be disappointing in some of these players. We're targeting too many of the same guys. All right, Jeff, who's your number 2?
Number 2. My number 2. Oh, number 3.
Or number 3. You're number 3.
My number 3, and unfortunately he got hurt, but this could help me. Cameron Meredith.
I dropped him off my list because of the injury, and that's where I put in Quincy Enunwa.
Okay.
And he was what, 40th about right now? 40-something?
Yeah, and so still incredibly low. And yes, he did get hurt in his hand, which you have to worry about with wide receivers.
It's something to watch.
But this could actually help because if he is back in time and he's healthy, he's not. What is he not going to be the number 1 wide receiver there? Where they can put Kevin White there?
Kevin White maybe could be. But
okay, so
who knows?
Worst case scenario, he's number 2.
Yeah,
he put up 1,000 yards last year, and he's being undervalued like crazy. And they definitely have, I think, in Glennon, at least a quarterback that is as good as what they were playing last year. Because they were throwing out Barkley, and I mean, they had a slew of quarterbacks.
Yeah, and then everyone's down. The Bears are a terrible team, so no one can be any good. But yes, I mean,
Jordan Howard. I mean, last year they were playable already.
And I bring up the Kenny Britt thing because he was on. How can you get much worse than what the Rams were last year in that passing situation? And he was relevant. This guy wasn't amazing, but he was relevant. If you can get Cam Meredith in the 40s, which puts him as a wide receiver 5, a 5th receiver basically at that point. There's very little risk. And the injury actually could help with his value.
Yeah, and I love him. I love him even more.
What, under $5? If he's right
as a number 1 wide receiver that already had 1,000 yards last year,
and that was kind of my Enunwa thing. That's why I replaced him with Enunwa just because of the injury. But it's that same thing. You can possibly get a number 1 for nothing.
Yeah, not to mention not that this is everything, but he is a very the kind of wide receiver that teams love to get. I mean, the guy is 6'3", 207 pounds. Showed that he has pretty decent hands, that he's playing with substandard quarterbacks, still put up numbers. And this is going to be his 3rd year in the league. The first year he almost didn't even play. He had 11 receptions. But this is exactly where wide receivers kind of get their head on. This is the same time that Alshon Jeffries broke onto the scene with the same team.
Yep.
So I don't see really any downside. If he ups his TDs, and you can only imagine that he was hurt 2 games as well, or didn't play 2 games. He plays a full season, and he ups his TDs. He's going to be in the mix for a top 20 wide receiver.
Yeah, that's the thing with this list. People don't get it wrong and think, we think all these guys are going to
be.
These guys are going to be like 4th, 5th guys who we think can be 2, maybe 3.
Yeah,
and that's kind of what we're looking at. And we're not saying any of these guys are going to be wide receiver 1s or running back 1s, but actually, maybe my next guy could be. At the end of the season.
I was going to say, my last guy is actually one that I think is going to be a top.
My number 2 is Doug Martin. You didn't have him on your list, I think you said.
No, I didn't. But immediately, as soon as we talked about him, I was like, he should be.
He's 33rd right now. And this is where, if he's going 33rd, this is what I love about it. You can get Doug Martin for very little. You go snatch up Jacquizz Rodgers for nothing because he's 64th. You got a player right there. You get those few weeks without Martin, and you wouldn't even use him because you're getting to get Martin as a backup at this point. Yeah. He's not going to be a starter most likely. And he possibly could be a running back 1. Yeah, he actually could be. He's been that in the past. I'm not saying he's going to do it this year. I just like his value. I like how you can get him for the potential that he becomes that. I have no idea what he's actually going to do because Doug Martin, man, he's just...
He is up and down.
He's up and down. So, but if you can get him as your 4th running back, which is where he is right now, and he doesn't do anything, you're not hurt. You're not hurt, but you can get up another top running back. That's what I love about this. It's just he is a guy who you can't get guys in the 30s that can be that good. have the potential to be that good. Yeah, and you get Doug Martin. If you have a deep bench, get Jacquizz Rodgers. You have a running back right there. You're good. Good to go.
And it goes to strategy as well, because you average it out, and the price that you actually get, say, Doug Martin for the entire year.
Yep.
So he misses 3 games, and you're saying, hey, but I need that production.
Yep.
Like you said, if you can get someone like Jacquizz Rodgers to make up for it,
you're going to get looking for $2-3.
Exactly.
It's going to add nothing to it.
So you add $2 to what, the already low price of Doug Martin,
yep.
and you actually get a huge steal, because you're not actually going to lose out on a lot of production.
Yep.
Maybe not any. I mean, quite possibly.
You might, and
you're going to pay just a way lower price. So it actually works out for the best. And you saw this happen last year with Tom Brady.
Yeah.
You missed a bunch of games. You paid a significantly reduced price, and as long as you stream correctly or you plan for it, you get the same type of results for less money.
It even happened with Le'Veon Bell. It did.
It really probably even more so.
And he missed only 3 games, just like Doug Martin's going to miss. I'm not saying Doug Martin's Le'Veon Bell, because Le'Veon Bell still went for like $50 in our auction.
Yeah.
Doug Martin's on. You're going to get Doug Martin for under 20.
Oh yeah,
very easily, and because people are down on Doug Martin because of how he's been so up and down, and you can get him for you can take a little risk maybe with him having to spend a little bit of your money. But
a little bit less of a risk if you get Jacquizz Rodgers.
If you go look at the end of the year in an auction, if you look at your team and really see what you wasted money-wise at the end of a year, you probably always wasted $25 to $30 minimum, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
I wasted it. I wasted 19 on Arian Foster last year, I will admit.
Yeah, you just want your money to be as useful as possible, so you take kind of a risk you're willing to swallow.
Well, and this is actually the Arian Foster thing does make sense in a way, because it's kind of a good comparison. It's a different situation, but I took a little bit of a risk on Arian Foster last year for $19. You might have to take a little bit of a risk on Doug Martin for kind of the same thing. If he doesn't pan out, you go get Jacquizz Rodgers. I'm not saying Jacquizz Rodgers is going to be amazing, but yes, if Doug Martin doesn't work out, Rodgers could be usable for a while. I did that I got Foster, took a little risk, and I got Ajayi. It worked out. Rodgers isn't going to be Ajayi, but it's still, take a risk, but make sure you get the guy who could take over for that and won't cost you very much. Shoot, maybe even Charles Sims. If you think Charles Sims is going to be that guy. Yeah. Get Charles Sims, because he'll be $1 too.
And you'll find this closer to the draft anyway.
You'll know there'll be more talk. Maybe Sims is.
Neither of them are going to go for a lot. So.
All right, so that was my number 2 player.
And I only have one left.
And this is your number 2.
Number 2. And once again, I feel like all of my loves are on here. And this one does come with a little more risk, but I really think his upside is easily a number 1 wide receiver in this, Keenan Allen.
Yep,
I've talked about a ton. The guy's had some really, just a run of really bad luck. He has yet to play a full season. He had 15 games, 14 games.
Yep.
Then he had the lacerated spleen. Half his season was gone, and last year he blew out his knee. But every time he plays, he's not built on speed either, which is good for him, because obviously the knee injury.
Is he 19th? I think he's down to 19th right now.
Yeah, so he's 19th overall in average. You'll see him drop even farther, down all the way to 30th.
Yeah, we've seen that a lot. People are going to be down on it because of.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a very real, But at the same time, how are you going to. He had one injury, really, in my eyes. Last year, he blew out his knee. You've seen it happen to many, many guys. I can't really, do the spleen against him. I can't hold it against him. And every time he plays, he's wonderful. The first game, they targeted him an insane amount. He played one half. He had 6 receptions for, 65 yards or whatever. He was really looking good. And then, season over, which is really unfortunate. But I think this guy has, I think he's going to be, as long as he plays a full schedule, I think he's a wide receiver 1. Yep. I think he has a chance to really, possibly kind of rival those guys. I don't think he's quite going to get up to the Julio, Odell, those guys, but I think he could be 6th, 7th overall.
Yeah, he can
and he's definitely go for a lot less than those guys.
Yeah, he's not on my list, but I thought about that once I saw he was at 19th again. It made me think about it, but there's still a little risk there, but
he was one of the more riskier picks.
Maybe, there is, but who knows? Everybody's a risk for injury. Yeah, just because someone's been hurt, it doesn't necessarily. It's been different injuries. Yeah. It's not like it's the same thing. I don't know. It's
also he has been cleared and he was running routes at full speed.
Yeah, he should be fine.
You keep up to date with his status. Yeah. But it looks like the knee is healing fine. It looks like he's going to be good to go week 1.
I really think he's going to have a full season. I think it's. I don't. If he doesn't, I just feel bad for the guy.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for the spleen, his first 3 years, he probably would have played 15, 14 games like in each of his first 3. So, take it with a grain of salt.
Maybe he'll miss a game. Maybe he'll miss 2. Something like that.
Yeah, and
with little minor things, but everybody
whatever.
does.
Yeah, exactly.
But he didn't make my list. But my number 1, again, probably. People are probably going to question me on this. It's Devontae Parker. I've been on Devontae Parker forever. He's my guy.
I'll give you this. I understand where you're coming from, but
the reason is
it is a leap.
He is 42nd ranked, and again, this is where I'm looking at it is kind of and taking like him, John Brown. Some of these guys, getting in the 40s here, I think they have the potential to. I don't think John Brown has the potential to be wide receiver 1. I think Devontae Parker actually has that potential in him to be a number 1 wide receiver in the NFL. Definitely not predicting that, but I think he will finish a top 20 receiver this year. I will go out on a limb and say that. I don't make many actual predictions number wise. I really do believe Devontae Parker will be a top 20 receiver at the end of the year. He was a 14th pick in the draft a couple seasons ago. He's battled some injury and other stuff. I just don't. He wasn't. From everything I hear about Devontae Parker, it sounds like he wasn't really ready for the NFL in a way. Like he thought he could just come in and become a star based off his talent alone. He didn't really realize, everyone has talent here. You actually have to work at it. Yes, it's the off season. You hear these fluff pieces. Everyone everyone's in great shape. Everyone's working harder than they have before. Yes, I don't necessarily. That stuff is hard to believe, but I'm gonna say yes. He has learned. He's a 3rd-year guy. You see receivers start to step up a lot in this 3rd year. It does happen. Yeah. Yes, the guys who do it the 1st or 2nd year are just. They're different breed of receiver. It does happen though. Around year 3, I really think receivers can start to step up. I'm going to go. Devontae Parker's going to be a top 20 guy, and you're going to get him as a 42nd ranked receiver right now. You're going to get him as a wide receiver 5. I thought he was going to be going higher than this, and I thought I'd have to pay a little bit more for him. Maybe I won't. And there's not as much risk as I thought there was going to be, and that makes me excited about it. Because I don't know what it is about Devontae Parker, but I think he's going to be top 20 guy and really be up there. He's my number 1.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm kind of on your bandwagon. I
know 1's a little high.
My only worry with him is the offense. They don't necessarily throw it that much, and Landry is going to get his 100 receptions. He soaks them up. He's great. And they did re-sign Kenny Stills.
Yep.
But the funny thing, I was just looking at it, and I wouldn't have guessed this, but Kenny Still had less receptions than Devontae Parker last year.
Yeah, and
Kenny Stills had 9 touchdowns, which saved his kind of season. So, and Devontae Parker, 744 yards last year on 56 receptions. He has the ability to really make a jump. So I'm totally with you with that. I think he's probably one of the breakout candidates. It's scary to say this just because I haven't seen it with the Dolphins and I haven't seen it with him, and he still has 2 guys above him that they're paying happily, and he's definitely not taking over for Jarvis Landry. So I'm kind of wondering how many receptions can they get him? Is he going to have to start hot in order to get those numbers? I don't know.
Yeah, can Tannehill do it? I don't know. But you're getting him. You're not. There's little risk if he stays where he is right now.
Yeah, I'm just playing devil's advocate, but I totally understand where you're coming from. He looks like he looks the part. Now can he play it?
Yeah, we'll see if this offseason good news stuff actually matters when it comes to the season. A lot of times it doesn't, but we'll see. All right, I think that's our list. Some of my guys I say didn't make the list.
I was going to say, who are your honorable mentions?
Some of my honorable mentions, thought about Gillislee down there, but he is starting to inch up the actual board a little bit. He's around 28th right now or something like that, which, I can see that, but it's the Patriots, so you don't really want to take much. If he was down further, I would have put him on those. Forte, actually, I even thought about Forte, just because he's 41st right now in these ranks. And yes, I think everyone expects Powell to kind of take over, but there is no 100% clear indication that will happen. So if you can get a 41st receiver or 41st running back, there's again little risk if you're getting a guy as your 5th running back. I don't necessarily think he's going to be great, but 41st, that's way down there. So I didn't put him on my list, but I thought about those guys just because no one thinks about him right now. At least no one thinks about Forte. Forte is done in people's minds right now. And I know you're on the Powell bandwagon too, but Powell's starting to inch up a we
so it might not be.
So those are a couple of the guys I thought of. Jeremy Maclin could be if he goes maybe we didn't talk about the top of the show, but if he signs with the Bills, maybe.
Yeah, and he is actually. And this was even before the trade rumors. I was deciding whether or not to put him on here because he had he was pretty disappointing. Yep. But at the same time, now that he's moving, I'm even more excited about him.
Yep.
And I know everyone's probably down on him. They're like, what does Kansas City know that I don't? That, they're getting rid of him. The truth is, he was a good wide receiver on Philly. He went to an offense where they don't throw a lot. Yep. He's a possession guy. He can do a few different things. He's just a really solid wide receiver. So if he does go somewhere like the Bills, and he will get a ton of playing time. Zay Jones is hurt. Watkins is always hurt. He could be the number one guy there immediately and be better than anyone they've had in the past 3 years.
Yep.
So I like him. And the other two wide receivers that I fiddled around with putting them on my list, both really far down there. Marvin Jones, 51.
Yeah.
Once again, he was hugely disappointing last year, but his first half numbers were good enough to, keep him relevant. And I think he could easily make another jump. And the last one is a tough sell. I understand this, but Taylor Gabriel.
I was going to say 64th, right?
Yeah, 64th overall. There's a lot of mouths to feed there, but he is a very unique player on that team. And I would rather have him than Sanu. And I think he can really be a threat that makes a lot of mismatches in the middle of the field. I really like him as a player. So I think he is going to be probably joining, the back end of my benches on a lot of teams because I can get him.
Yeah, I'll just say throw out a couple names quick. Even Will Fuller, I was never a Will Fuller guy, but he's 65th ranked, so there's literally no risk anymore.
It's pretty crazy he's that low.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of him last year. I thought he got too overhyped at one point, but 65th, there's no risk there. I'd even watch at Kansas City, see what happens. Who is going to be that guy who steps into the Macklin role? Chris Conley right now, other than Tyreek Hill, is the highest ranked receiver at 72nd.
That's what I worry about.
We just don't know who that guy's going to be.
Yeah, I worry about that fact is Tyreek Hill, even if he doesn't step up and be a wide receiver one, if they still want to use him elsewhere, you still have Tyreek Hill, Kelsey as the people you're going to probably go to the majority of the time. And then you're going to have your wide receiver one that's going to kind of get almost scraps, which is going to be a weird dynamic. So I'm kind of just pushing. If it's not Kelsey, I'm probably not going to mess with Casey.
Yep. Yeah, it's maybe in a dynasty. Actually, I should get to the dynasty.
Right.
I thought about that. Maybe throw one of those guys. I wouldn't keep him right now. Even watch out for Laquan Treadwell. He's 93rd.
Actually, I really wanted. I was actually looking a bunch of stuff up about him. I was really wanted to put him on here. It was just such a poor passing offense that I couldn't do it. But I think he's going to be really interesting to watch. But he's still, Diggs is still there, and Thielen.
Yeah,
those guys are relatively. They're both very young.
He's a number one pick, or first round pick for a reason. So
yeah.
All right. Well, we've talked about everybody, I think. So.
Yeah.
That's our undervalued list. I think next week we're going to talk about polarizing players. We've talked about some of them might be on the list we just did. Just some guys that people are so far up and down on. Some guy might have him 15th or 40th. It's just crazy. And there's no consensus on it. And we probably don't even have consensus on it. That's the most I think we've disagreed, actually, in this episode. So
yeah,
I had to try to sell a couple. But I think that'll be it for today. We'll talk to you guys next time.